Choose Ninja 2012, WAAR Radio, and ConservaRican.com. Partners in the fight to restore the Republic. You're listening to ConservaRican and Friends on WAAR Radio.
RINO, everybody knows you got 1 tail, 4 feet, 12 toes. Mr. RINO, look what grows. 2 big horns on the tip of your nose. Now you got 3 friends, Mr. Rhinoceros, the elephant, the buffalo, and hippopotamus. You got 2 bad eyes, but you're not deaf. In Africa and Asia, there's not many of you left. Mr. RINO, everybody knows you got 1 tail, 4 feet, 12 toes. Mr. RINO, look what grows. 2 big horns on the tip of your nose. 5, 6, 7 makes a herd, and on your back rides a white-tipped bird. 8, 9, 10, you weigh a ton, but you're fast as a zebra when you're on the run. Mr. RINO, everybody knows you got 1 tail, 4 feet, 12 toes. Mr. RINO, but look what grows. 2 big horns on the tip of your nose.
Yeah, that's the kind of tongue-in-cheek beginnings that we like here at ConservaRican and Friends on this Wednesday, February 10th, 2016, the day after the New Hampshire primary. And what a primary, strange primary it actually was. I had the pleasure of attending Camp Cruz this past weekend and doing what needed to be done. Ultimately, we were to find out later on that this wasn't a large investment for the Cruz campaign, as they efficiently placed third, a very strong showing considering the fact that they made very little monetary commitment to the state. And it's a small state, not many delegates, but still a very strong showing. And for those confused and utterly befuddled by the concept of the show or what it is that I'm trying to get across, if you didn't read the description and you're that lazy and you don't know where I'm coming from, basically, I kind of earlier today when I was thinking, what's going to be the hook for today? Everybody's doing post-election stuff. We're still here in the mindset of real conservatives, trying to get people to open their eyes. I mean, we had John Kasich finish second yesterday. I mean, what does that say about where our party is at? You know, somebody who's another pro-amnesty, Common Core type of moderate establishment type. I mean, that's the Republican Party now. Look at who's left. We had Christie drop out. At this point, we're working with the front runners, because I really, at this point, am refusing to take Dr. Ben Carson seriously anymore, especially after the debacle a couple of weeks back with the ceasing the campaigning, and was he going to suspend? Was he dropping out of the race? Let's just work with what I would consider the active campaigns, or the more active campaigns at this point. Kasich, which is, like I said, as I referred to as very much a moderate. You have Donald Trump, the single-payer proponent, the touchback deportation proponent. The first person he thanks after winning is his sister, the liberal judge that quite possibly will be one of many Supreme Court appointees, which he may have the power to actually put into the Supreme Court should he actually win the nomination and go on to win the presidency. Marco Rubio, another flip-flopper who's shown some moderate leanings. I mean, this is the party now. That's what Republicans are. I'm sorry. At this point, I don't consider myself one of you guys. So, by extension, the ugly, derogatory, almost a curse word, like if you're a RINO, I've been going after people calling them RINOs. At this point, you know what? It's your party. I'm the RINO, apparently. I'm the RINO. Anybody that stands for the principles of the original founding of our party, anybody who's a Lincoln Republican, anybody who's a Reagan Republican, anybody who's a Ted Cruz Republican, we're RINOs now. It's disgusting. I am literally almost like ashamed to call myself a Republican when this is what we come up with, especially here in the Northeast, because I fight it on a regular basis, almost a daily basis. This is what the values of the party have disintegrated into, where in a primary where we have a very strong constitutional conservative candidate here in Senator Ted Cruz, constantly being attacked, constantly being disparaged, lies are being made up. You don't know what to believe anymore because the average person doesn't go beyond what the mainstream media tells them. I mean, think about it. You know, I mean, if Cruz is such let's say a candidate who can't win, he can't win, they say. Right? He goes to New Hampshire, spends very little money. He's basically the evangelical candidate that's left in the race. He's the true constitutional conservative that's perceived to be a social conservative, although he's a 10th Amendment guy. You get him going to New Hampshire, not investing the full, exploding and using all the resources and opening up the war chest, and still finishing third, an efficient $27 per vote. That's amazing. I am totally impressed. I will say this, though. The climate up there, and I'm not talking about the weather. Let me actually tell you a little funny story. So I drive out to Camp Cruz on Friday. I actually got invited to the IJ Journal iHeartMedia party that was in Manchester. There was a lot of famous people there. It was just crawling with, fabulous celebrities from the world of conservative politics. I actually saw Brett Baer in person was there. Mary Catherine Ham was there. A couple of really notable people. So after I leave, I'm driving back to Chester, where Camp Cruz was located. So I'm driving myself around. Boom, I missed my turn because the GPS, I don't know, I think that, the music was blasting. Something happened. I missed my turn. So I'm turning around, and it comes to me to do a U-turn to get back so I can get back on the main road. And wouldn't you know it, in the snow of New England, I wind up getting my car stuck in someone's yard. Now, I guess people in New Hampshire at that point were sick of carpetbaggers and out-of-towners coming up, politics related. So I get the police called on me. Wow. Was that exciting and unnecessary. So the cops, next thing you know, there's 4 cops trying to push my car because I have a front-wheel drive, and obviously I don't handle the snow so well. Eventually I had to get my car winched out at about 1:30 in the morning, and then eventually make my grand appearance at Camp Cruz. It was a very exciting weekend. The pre-debate rally was fun. There was a group of activists, very interesting activists, who were attacking Donald Trump, who had some funny artwork, and they were dressed up as gorillas. They were there. Kasich seemed to have about 4 or 5 people only there, but they were signs that were about like 4 feet by 8. I mean, they were just humongous. Cruz had the most actual people on the ground there that I saw. I don't know if it speaks to the sentiment of the Northeastern Republican voter, but I have to say, quite frankly, and it necessarily shouldn't come as a shock because when I was there 2 weeks ago, Kasich had been doing kind of well. But when you're there and experiencing it and you don't see that many people for the candidate, you don't really know what to expect on primary night. But he scored strong enough. I mean, at this point, what I fear is the consolidated establishment support. It's funny. After what I think was a command performance, honestly, and you know, anybody that knows me knows that I've been going after Governor Chris Christie pretty hard for over the last couple of years. I feel that you know, it's a rough situation here in New Jersey. We're either first or second in the country in people leaving leaving the state, you know, due to the size of government, you know, the amount of taxation, and it was like a great take out there. I mean, he really went for the throat with Rubio, and you know what? And I've had varying, you know, stances on Rubio. A couple of things really that bother me about him are the robot, and I've noticed, and I've said this a lot. I mean, it's one thing to stay on message, but you have to be able to properly articulate your message, and you have to be adaptable enough. That's where I guess the debating skills come in. It seems like instead of trying to defend his point or counter what you know, Governor Christie was saying, he was just finding, you know, a couple of different ways to express the same message. And it really does. It sounds canned. It sounds like something that he probably goes over and over and over again with his staff, probably practices in the shower or in front of a mirror. I mean, at this point, I think that what I started to see in Marco Rubio back in 2013, the general voter is starting to see now. I think he's malleable, as Jimmy Carter would say. I think he's a perfect example of somebody who's perceived to be a conservative, but is truly malleable and looking to either cut deals or come to the middle. The case of Donald Trump, the curious case of Donald Trump as a Republican, is that he is not a Republican. And I was just on the Wayne Dupree show earlier. We had a great show, a fantastic panel. And, you know, Wayne Dupree and Hutch Bailey from Cold War Radio and Steel City Resistance, they're all in on Trump. And it's funny. It's just like, I want to just kind of tell them, okay, let me make my points. And they're agreeable to listen to them to a certain extent. But they're just all in on Trump, and they don't want to hear it. And you know what? I have to kind of say that I do kind of sympathize with people, because I'm one of them as well, that have been burnt by politicians over and over and over again, and would say, why believe another politician? Senator Cruz, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is not your average everyday politician. You know, politics is a popularity contest. And if you wanna break it down to its most basic, whether you're running for student body president, whether you're running for God knows whatever, comptroller, or whatever position you may be running for, it ultimately boils down to a popularity contest. No one in Washington, D.C. has gone out of their way further to be unpopular in a sense by standing for principle and being unyielding and uncompromising as Ted Cruz. That's why I believe he's getting a lot of juice, because I think that people that are disenfranchised feel disenfranchised by the status quo and where politics have been going, the one guy I think that they could always point to say, this is the one guy who's not full of crap. This is the one guy who's not going to be swayed, not going to be bought, that's an actual politician, has been him the entire time. Trump supporters will still argue that he's a politician, and then that'll be the basis for their argument against why they don't want him to be president. And you know what? You have every right to want whoever you want to be president. My whole thing is just, really seek out the information and do your vetting. I mean, if you feel comfortable with, kind of rudimentary, short, a few words answers, I mean, I'm not buying. We're gonna fix this. We got a plan. We're gonna make it great. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. I need to hear details. I mean, the one thing about conservatives is they go the extra mile. They dig a little deeper. Give me something to dig up. I mean, I want Donald to really speak to me as a voter. I'd be happy to listen to him if we can get a little bit more specific information. And it's like, it almost seems like if you want to challenge him, then he'll crawl up into a ball, and you're either not going to get an answer, you're going to get made fun of. He's going to distract you by doing something buffoonish. I mean, it's a tired act at this point. I mean, it was one thing when he first stood up and, he did the whole big, immigration thing, but then that deteriorated from details into, saying things that a lot of people have attacked him for as far as being racist or whatever the case may be. I don't necessarily believe that that's racist at all. I mean, I have, and I'm a Hispanic, Latino American, whatever you want to call it. I have as big an issue with illegal immigration as anyone. I mean, I am pro legal immigration. I think immigrants have a lot to offer this country, but I have a serious issue with what's going down at the southern border. That's something that definitely needs to be addressed. And, at this point, who's the right guy to do it? Is it going to be the, touchback deportation Trump, and let's build this wall, probably with the people who come back that were just show deported? Or is it, and that's another funny point. Wayne said, I want to hear Cruz say that we're going to round up people and deport them. Or he said something to that effect. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it was something like that. I think he's very clearly stated his intention to enforce immigration law. And in the whole scrum of what I was just in when we were on a show, we were on a large panel, so it's kind of hard to always make your point. But if you were listening to Wayne earlier and you're listening to me right now, first of all, thank you. We do appreciate your viewership. And the next thing I want to do is actually make the point that I was trying to make on that show earlier. The process of actually deporting people isn't necessarily broken. It is now under President Obama, but President George W. Bush showed that we can get people out of this country. We can round them up in a certain center if they're arrested, or we can investigate or whatever. He deported millions of people. Millions, literally millions. If they say we have 11 million, which I think is closer to like over 20, but whatever the case may be, he probably deported a third of that, or close to half of that many people. The same with Bill Clinton. The issue has always been actually having a mechanism to dissuade or to keep people out. And I think a lot of politicians, because they're pandering to the Chamber of Commerce and they like cheap illegal immigrant labor, quite frankly, it's always a show. It's always like, oh, what we take a stand against this. We take a stand against that. I got an email from the RNC the other day begging for money so that they can enforce immigration laws, so they could take a stand for conservative principles and policies. But their main guy is somebody like Jeb Bush, who's a pro-amnesty guy. Why would you ever want to contribute to a cause that's contrary to your principles? But people still do it. One thing that's funny, it's funny, Bernie Sanders said this. But he said he wanted to get rid of the concept of, or get rid of super PACs rather. And I don't have a problem with that. I really don't, because there's so many super PACs and political organizations that run around and they use the conservative tag. They claim to be conservative. Guys like Karl Rove are behind a lot of those organizations, and they're just collecting money for the establishment, man. Oh my God. I am so not establishment. It's, but somehow through, reverse osmosis, which is, I don't know, I'm just reading a water bottle here, and that was the first thing that jumped at me. I'm a RINO. I'll still attack people for being RINOs, but they're different types of RINOs. Maybe a different species or breed of RINO. You're listening to ConservaRican and Friends on We Are America Radio. It's Wednesday night at 11:21. The next big business on the table is going to be South Carolina. South Carolina is an interesting state. Many people say, and I don't actually doubt it, that it really is, at the very least, the last stand for Dr. Ben Carson. I mean, that's a state where you would think he would do well, just like Iowa was. I don't want to hear the excuses about this one went around and said that they were dropping out of the race, and it's all nonsense. It really, actually, literally is nonsense. His campaign has suffered because of, what the actual output of the campaign. I mean, you have to, if you're going to run a campaign, you got to run a real campaign. Unfortunately for him, he's been the victim of some changes at the top. You can't keep changing campaign managers and firing major, or whether they resigned. I don't know if they fired them or resigned, but getting rid of, a lot of the big people in your campaign. It's not conducive to success. The latest South Carolina presidential primary Real Clear Politics average shows that Trump has a commanding lead over Ted Cruz, 36% to 19.7, basically 20. Next, you see Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio's in an interesting position, having finished 5th in New Hampshire. He hasn't placed in the top 2 in either. But if you listen to mainstream media, he's still very much a favorite. He's a guy that's not going to go away, apparently. Although I can't see him really collecting a lot of donations in earnest. I mean, unless he has a super PAC aligned with him, unless other establishment elements in super PACs, kind of rally around him. I don't see grassroots really money coming to him. I don't think he's a guy that the evangelicals necessarily want. I don't know. I mean, you can run a national poll that'll say Carson can beat Clinton. That'll say Bush can beat Clinton. Rubio, Trump, Cruz, all of them. That doesn't make them viable candidates, in a Republican primary. Republican primary, you're going to have your moderate wing, many of whom are a little bit more, I would say, fair weather voters, or they're voters that maybe are likely to come out more for a national election than they would in a primary setting. The last midterm election, I believe that the grassroots conservatives won that, and that's the reason why there were so many gains in the House of Representatives and obviously winning the Senate. I think that was the driving force behind that. Truly was the conservatives. And a lot of them I see kind of, if they're going to get behind an outsider, and I think a lot of them, when Dr. Carson peaked, I think that was a lot of the true conservatives were probably like, hey, let's try an outsider, and it was Dr. Carson. But I think that, with the way his campaign has gone, a lot of those have kind of disappeared. And it's funny, too, because as he's gone down, Cruz has gone up. So I think that kind of jives with the whole, the base of the party is still very conservative. These polls do mean something, but they don't mean everything. So I'm not ready to concede that Trump may even necessarily be in the lead. If you look at the the California Republican primary, Real Clear Politics average for California, state loaded with delegates. Cruz is winning there. If you look at Texas, Republican presidential primary, Real Clear Politics average, he has a commanding lead. Not as commanding as maybe Trump in some states, but I think he's up 9 points. That's pretty commanding. That's beyond the margin for error. And plus, it's his home state. Super Tuesday and CPAC. Wow. In the next couple of weeks, we have the Nevada caucuses. Obviously, we have a South Carolina primary next. And then Super Tuesday taking place the day before CPAC starts. I can't wait to see. I wish I can kind of look into a crystal ball and know what exactly we're going to be looking at, when the time comes for CPAC. Because quite honestly, it would be a very exciting CPAC if we had hopefully down to maybe 2 guys. Whoever it is that's really going to stand. I think probably worst case scenario we'll have 3 left. It'll definitely be Cruz. It'll definitely be Trump. And it'll probably be, after Super Tuesday, the winner of the establishment lane, which is either going to be Rubio, Bush, or Kasich. I can't really see Carson advancing. I just don't think he's got what it takes. I honestly really don't even know what to say. One thing, I made a point on a previous podcast a while ago when it came to Ben Carson that I honestly feel that physicians in general, because I deal with a lot of physicians in the line of work that I'm in, that they're brilliant people. They're so focused on patient care that in the role of administrator, sometimes they do a little bit of a sloppy job. And that's why, some doctors, or I don't know, some of the doctors' offices that I deal with aren't, don't have things necessarily as together as you think that they would that they would need to from an administrative standpoint. I think that Dr. Carson, trying to heal the ills of the world, may find himself the victim of that. Because think about it, he's out there running, doing his campaign. Ultimately, he's the one that's responsible and accountable for his campaign. His campaign has been a freaking soup sandwich. It's been terrible. For a guy that was really right there and he had every opportunity with Donald Trump. I thought Donald Trump was sinking his own campaign when he really went after Dr. Carson. I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't want to do this. Maybe he just wants to, make a little noise, and then he's going to come out with a new show or a new product or something like that. But Dr. Carson, I don't think, has the temperament or the will to really go in there and win this thing. And it's unfortunate because he's a good man, He was never my guy. He was never my candidate. But, he's kind of whimpering here. For the guy that raised the most money in the fourth quarter of 2015, I would have expected a lot more from him. A lot more. Interesting things going on all around the board. I had a great time in New Hampshire. I'd really like the opportunity to maybe go out to South Carolina and take a look at what's going on over there. I don't know necessarily yet that I'm going to get, down there. But if I do get antsy enough, I may actually go check it out. Wouldn't that be something? I know we definitely have a lot of things in New Jersey. If I see you in the streets with a petition, please sign it. 5th Congressional District Delegate Julio Rivera, please sign for me here. We're going to be back next week with a ConservaRican and Friends. I'm trying to record with Rob Spade, a special Spreaker this Saturday. I want to get his take on what's going on in the presidential primary up to this point, and just talk about politics in general. What I want to do is maybe take the next couple of days and actually take a look at what's going on in D.C. Listen, we have a lame duck, dangerous, leftist, Marxist president Hussein Obama, as Dan Adams likes to call him. And we haven't really taken a good look at what Hussein's been up to lately. So I think, for the first time since my omnibus episode, I think I'd like to do a little short, maybe a half an hour run on what's actually going on in D.C. You can't ever really let what's going on there get too far away from you, because, that's actually, I think, what the general population has done and what's led to, our far move to the left, which has actually dragged the Republican Party, which I no longer identify with it. So that's tonight, ConservaRican and Friends. My name is Julio Rivera. Check us out at www.ConservaRican.com, on Twitter at Oh Yeah, It's Julio, and on Facebook, the ConservaRican page. Like us, and also like WAAR Media Group. And I'll be back with you soon. God bless you, and have a wonderful night.